Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kate Schultz, and I do work as the consulting dietitian for the New Mexico Beef Council. And this evening, I wanted to just share with you a little bit about who I am and what I do and some of the projects that we are participating in the state of New Mexico, as well as share with you some of the content that I share with my audiences. So a little bit about me. I grew up on my family's farm and ranch on the Nebraska-Wyoming state line. I also married into a farming and ranching family in the San Luis Valley of Colorado. So my mom was a nurse practitioner and my aunt was a pharmacist. So I really was exposed to both medicine and agriculture from an early age. And I really believe that what I do in this position as a consulting dietitian really helps to bring those together. So my history and just experience in agriculture, and then my experience as a dietitian. So I love to be able to bridge that gap for individuals, just recognizing that there are so many that are removed from agriculture, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. So what I do for the New Mexico Beef Council is kind of all encompassed here on this slide. So overall, I work with all of their health and nutrition programs, specifically networking with fellow dietitians, working with dietetic internship programs, working with undergrad dietetic programs at New Mexico State and also at the University of New Mexico, working with our professional associations in the state. So the New Mexico Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, also looking at doing a partnership or some work with the American Heart Association, really featuring and showcasing some of the low-fat beef options that we have and some of those recipes that are certified by the American Heart Association. So I work to represent the New Mexico Beef Association in anything in regards to health and nutrition, and work to build relationships with all of these partners, as well as always looking for new and additional partners as well. So here is just a picture on the left here of an event that I was able to attend in Albuquerque last fall, really where I was able to engage with dietitians from the Albuquerque and kind of surrounding areas to participate in their fall meetup. The New Mexico Beef Council was a sponsor of this and was able to provide this basket that was then given away for a raffle. And that really helped us just to be able to be present with these organizations to make sure that they know that we are wanting to partner with them and also have exceptional resources available to them and their members in regards to beef nutrition and research and how beef can fit into many healthy eating patterns. Again, here on the right, the Health Organization Partnership, looking at one with the American Heart Association. New Mexico had partnered with the American Heart Association in the past, and we're looking at revamping that partnership as well. And then this was something that we participated in the beginning of, the middle of last year to the end of last year, where in the 2020 dietary guidelines, it was the first time that specific guidance was offered for infants age 0 to 2 years of age. So this really allowed an opportunity for us in the beef industry to utilize this information, utilize the results where they specifically called out the need for additional iron and zinc during this time for infants starting at 6 months of age when you're starting solid foods. And because of this, the New Mexico Beef Council, in partnership with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, worked together to do this pediatrician outreach toolkit, where we sent this information. Some of the resources can be found here on the left, really showcasing, again, how beef is a wonderful complementary first food, how to safely recommend beef as a complementary first food, and really give ideas on how to do that, starting with a puree, then moving to shredded beef, then on to chopped beef. So here are some of the results from that survey, really just showing that this was incredibly well received. So this is information that I share out with all of my audiences as well, but I love to share this with producers, recognizing that this is what some of your checkoff dollars are going to. So this, for example, was really able to have a large impact for a very small cost, and really showcases here that physicians are on board. They are recommending beef to patients since receiving the materials. They intend to recommend beef to parents and caregivers, and working with pediatricians in this regard and providing this information that is practical for their patients is so very important. So we're looking this year at doing an extension as well to not only pediatricians, but to family physicians, just talking about how beef is such a wonderful food for strength. So we will hope to have those results from that campaign by the end of this year. This is some of the information that I share with audiences. The picture of me down here in the middle is at the University of New Mexico. We participate in their hotel, tourism, and restaurant management classes. So I will be in Las Cruces all next week as well, conducting these classes where we go through really all aspects of beef, from the production methods to different cuts and how to fabricate different cuts, to nutrition, cooking methods. And this is some of the information that I not only share with these audiences that are listed here. We also participated with the Central New Mexico Community College, their culinary school, and the ProStart teacher and student training for New Mexico high schools. And I'll get into this information a little bit more in depth as well. I also wanted to share with you that all of this information that I have that I'm sharing today is available to any of you free of charge for any outreach that you would like to do, or just for your informational purposes as well. So now I want to just kind of take a deeper dive into protein and why this is a topic that is it seems to be everywhere. We seem to be hearing about the importance of protein. We see protein in water these days, in cereal, of course, in, protein bars, and for good reason, because there is a lot of research that really shows protein's role in beneficial health outcomes. Some of them are listed here, and these are things that people tend to be very interested in. It seems like people are wanting to know, how to eat to control their appetite and what they can eat to help to aid with weight loss and that preservation of lean muscle mass, healthy metabolism, reduced weight gain. So I like to start off my presentations not only with producers, but with my medical professional audiences, really kind of laying the foundation of protein and why this is something of interest to many. So achieving optimal protein intakes, from the research that we have and the research that is available, what we know is that in general, most people are consuming about 16 grams of protein at breakfast, a little bit more at lunch, and then the majority of their protein in the evening. What we like to encourage people to do, what we have research showing them the benefit of doing, is to really spread that protein intake evenly throughout the day. So about 25 to 30 grams at breakfast, about 25 to 30 grams at lunch, and then 25 to 30 grams at dinner. There's no real difference in the total amount of protein that people are consuming between the dietary pattern on the left or the right. But what we do know is that with continuous protein intake throughout the day of about 30, 30, and 30, that offers the opportunity for repeated maximal stimulation of protein synthesis, really meaning that you just get more bang for your buck in the protein that you eat. So you're able to metabolize it. It's helping to build that muscle. It's helping to keep you full and satiated. And so we do try to work with our audiences and our healthcare professionals in showing them ways to be able to do this. Of course, we like to feature the recipes that we have on our website, nmbeef.org. And we also like to refer them to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association website, which is www.beefiswhatsfordinner.com. So this is another chart that I just like to be able to highlight that I think is a nice visual for producers, for consumers, for medical professionals. There's a lot of talk these days about plant-forward diets and plant-based diets, and we really wanted to bring beef into that conversation. And we do that by utilizing this chart, for example. So here we have 5 different items, all providing around 25 grams of protein. But as you can see, there is an enormous caloric difference. So for the quinoa, in order to get 25 grams of protein, you need to consume 3 cups, coming in at 666 calories, where you can consume about 3 ounces of beef, get that 25 grams of protein for about 173 calories. Now, what I like to be able to do with something like this, and when we're talking about how plant, products and animal products really can complement one another, is that again, if you look at the previous slide, and we're recommending, 25 to 30 grams of protein at each meal, if you use beef as kind of your foundation of your plate, then it allows you to be able to utilize quinoa or black beans or edamame or any other, fruit or vegetable to be able to get that additional, 5 to 10 grams of protein. So we want to really bring beef into the conversation of a plant-based, plant-forward diet and get a little bold with that, but recognize that what animal proteins provide and what plant products provide, they don't need to be in competition with one another, but yet how can they really work to complement one another instead? So Beef's Big 10, this is something that I also like to highlight because really no matter what type of beef you choose, we know that there are numerous cuts available, at the store. Maybe some of you have your own meat that's processed and you get, different cuts of roast and, hamburger and steak and ribeye and fillets, but no matter what type of cut of beef that you choose, you can rest assured that they are all going to contain a great, they're just an absolute nutritional powerhouse for all of these nutrients that they provide. So there are really few foods that nourish and sustain like beef. And those are the conversations that we're wanting to have with audiences as well. So we know that it's important for people to be fed and for people to have calories for energy, but we want to take this one step further and really talk about how we can nourish and sustain and provide those foods that nourish and sustain, for example, like beef. So here is a breakdown that, again, that 3-ounce serving of cooked beef, providing 173 calories and all of these other nutrients. So an exceptional source of protein from B12, zinc, selenium, all the way down the line. So again, recognizing that no matter what type of cut that you choose, you are getting all of these 10 essential nutrients, which is wonderful. So some of the myths and facts, and I will send out this next document to you just so you have as a reference. This is something that we like to talk a lot about because there is so much misinformation out there in the media, in social media, even just between consumers. So this is a resource that we like to use that really provides the myth and then provides the fact and research and information to support the fact as well. So the first one is that beef is bad for my heart health/health in general. We are in March now, which is actually National Nutrition Month. We just are coming off of February, which was the American Heart Month. And there's a lot of information during this time, especially at the beginning of the year about what we should be eating and what we shouldn't be eating. But the reality is, as with any fat-containing food, it is going to contain a combination of fats, and beef is no different. So more than half of beef's fatty acid content is monounsaturated fat. This is the same fat that is found in olive oil. So we can recognize that the majority of the fat really is that monounsaturated fat, which we know has positive cardiometabolic or positive heart benefits. More than 1/3 of beef saturated fatty acid content is stearic acid. We know that stearic acid has a really neutral effect, doesn't really affect cholesterol one way or another. It's just kind of there. And what I also like to highlight is that more than 60% of whole muscle cuts are considered lean at retail. This allows consumers a wide variety of choices to choose from. So with that, I oftentimes hear, I hear about lean, but what does that mean? And so with this, again, the definition of lean from the USDA is that 95 milligrams, per serving, it provides less than 95 milligrams of cholesterol, less than 10 grams of total fat, and less than 4.5 grams of saturated fat. So we like to encourage people to look for the words loin around in the cut name and recognize that there are many choices available to them. Beef is leaner than ever before, and I really like to be able to showcase this and really give props to the producers, because the reason that this is happening is because producers have done such an exceptional job of really recognizing that consumers are looking for leaner options and stepping up to the plate to make this happen. So over the last, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, there have become more and more leaner options available because consumers were wanting that. producers recognize that. So they have worked on different genetics, so different breeding of the animal, to different feeding of the animal, to processing, and then really, the meat, what's available at the meat counter. So they have been advocates, and they have stepped up to the plate to provide leaner options for consumers, so that consumers can be very confident in choosing lean cuts and recognizing that it can play have an enormous impact on a healthy eating pattern. These are, again, we kind of shared with you that we are talking with the American Heart Association. Again, we have a series of 25 recipes that are American Heart Association certified, that can be found, again, not only on our website, but on beefitswhatsfordinner.com. And these are things that I like to showcase not only with consumers, but also medical professionals. This helps to really give us a lot of credibility in the beef industry to say, hey, we recognize, the importance of the American Heart Association. Most people recognize this, and that February is Heart Month. And we have recipes that are going to fit into this healthy eating pattern and heart healthy eating pattern that people are wanting to follow. I also like to encourage people to look for these recipes. Share this maybe with their cardiologist. I feel like sometimes if people have had, a heart attack or, maybe some issues with their heart, they'll go to their cardiologist, and their cardiologist, the maybe prime recommendation that they're making is to limit or avoid red meat. And I like to be able to give them these resources to share with their cardiologist to say, hey, there are a lot of options for us to still be able to include lean beef into a heart healthy diet. It's really about what we pair with it. And I will get into that a little bit later. So the next myth or misperception is that Americans eat too much beef. The reality here is that really Americans are eating beef within the guidelines. The recommendations is about 5.5 ounces a day. On average, Americans are consuming about 1.7 ounces of beef per day. I know it's kind of hard to measure what 1.7 ounces is, but what I really want to highlight here is that the gap in this is what is eaten with beef in the meal. So beef needs better partners. And we in the industry recognize this. And this is something that we are really, really working towards in realizing that red meat is incredibly versatile, and that is wonderful. It is consumed in a variety of dietary patterns, and some are definitely better for us than others. And so we really want to change that narrative and recognize that when we're talking about consuming red meat on a daily basis or a couple of times a week, what we want to encourage is to recognize, is that there's definitely room for improvement. So we know that oftentimes people are thinking of consuming what it looks like to consume red meat, may be the picture here on the left, where it is a triple cheeseburger from In-N-Out with some fries loaded with, it looks like some gravy and bacon, to really change the narrative to recommend or encourage more of an eating pattern that is going to include beef, similar to what's found in this picture. So, a lean patty with low-fat mozzarella cheese on a bed of lettuce, tomato on a whole grain bun, served with a nice side salad. So the last myth and misperception here that I have before I kind of get into the sustainability portion is that grass finished offers a better nutrition package than grain finished beef. And so there's a lot of discussion about this. We in the beef industry, we at the New Mexico Beef Council encourage people to eat beef of all kinds. So whether it be grass finished or grain finished, but I do like to be able to highlight for audiences just kind of some of the facts in regards to this. So for example, as we know as producers, the majority of cattle do spend their life on grass, but this is also one of those things that's very complicated, and it depends on what area of the country you live in. So of course, in the West, oftentimes we are in a drought. This year, a lot of areas have come out of a drought, but we still don't necessarily always have access to grass 365 days a year. So it's really, of course, as producers, it's up to you to figure out how to finish that animal. And that's what we like to share with consumers and with fellow medical professionals, is that, again, producers try to utilize all of the natural resources that they have available, but sometimes it's just not viable to have an animal be on grass 365 days a year. So we like to go through the reasonings that producers choose to grain finish or grass finish an animal. We also like to share this here because oftentimes it comes down to this omega-3. People are wanting to consume more omega-3s. They know that omega-3s are important for heart health. They're hearing from, media or maybe their doctors or fellow medical professionals that we need to be concerned about omega-3, making sure we're getting enough omega-3 in our diet. And that is absolutely the truth. But when we really look at the breakdown here between a grain-finished and a grass-finished animal, neither one of them are great sources of omega-3. And even though, as the dietitian for the New Mexico Beef Council, I wholeheartedly believe in people consuming fatty fish a couple times a week, talking to their physician about a supplement, but not really getting caught up in the grain finished or grass finished aspect of that omega-3. Again, you're still getting an amazing amount of protein and all of those other micronutrients. But for the omega-3, this chart here really does a great job of showcasing that again, and on average, your grass finished animal is going to provide about 0.02 grams. Your grain finished animal, 0.02 grams, your grass finished 0.05. Your daily recommendation for the bare minimum for omega-3 is 1.1 to 1.6 grams. So neither your grain finished or your grass finished gets you anywhere near close to that daily recommendation. So again, maybe consider some servings of fatty fish, talk to your physician about a supplement, but enjoy beef for all of the other nutrients that it does provide. So why sustainable nutrition? And I really, I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's top of mind for a lot of consumers. You had sustainable in your title for the project. And I just wanted to showcase some of the information that we have available, some of the information that we're sharing, some of the conversations that we're having. So why sustainable nutrition and why now? This definitely is something that is a newer concept. When I was in school, very rarely did we talk about sustainable nutrition. When we talked about sustainability, it was more recommending like an eating pattern or possibly a diet that people could stay on for a long time so that it was sustainable for them to remain on it, not necessarily sustainable in the way of an environmental impact. So right now, we know that our knowledge of nutrition is always changing. So I oftentimes like to refer to cholesterol and the recommendations for cholesterol and consumption of eggs, right? So, a couple of years ago, eggs were horrible for you, per everything that was out there. Then, 15 years later, they're recommending eggs. And now we have people who are following keto diets and eating butter. And so we do know that nutrition is always changing and evolving. And with that, also our food systems and what goes on in our food system is also rapidly evolving. And so with that, a sustainable food system, we like to talk about sustainability and that there are trade-offs for everything. And so with this, the definition is going to grow, the definition is going to evolve, just like I said, even with nutrition science. But overall, most experts agree that there is an economic pillar, an environmental pillar, and a social pillar that all really need to work together to encourage and ensure a sustainable food system. Taking it one step further, the 4 domains of sustainability here really refer to the fact that, nutrition and health also need to be a component in this. So in addition to environment, society, and culture and economics, we also need to take into account nutrition and health. And going back here, I also just wanted to mention, actually, I'll just continue on because I've included it on another slide. So with this, we know that there is a lot of talk as far as how do we feed the planet, in the next 25 years. We know that the population is supposed to expand. We know that there are people who are chronically hungry now. So more than a quarter of the planet's 7.5 billion people suffer from malnutrition, and nearly 1 billion are chronically hungry. And so when you think of that and the fact that we have individuals right now on Earth that are hungry and are not well nourished and don't have access to food, it becomes overwhelming when we think about adding more people to that equation. The challenge is that right now there's enough food that is being grown. It's how do you get it to the individuals who need it while keeping it fresh, while keeping it safe? And how do we work with communities to really work with what they have as far as natural resources to encourage them and educate them on growing different foods and utilizing different things? But the fact is that, again, it's not just a simplistic solution. So it's not just about feeding more people or growing more food. Again, it comes down to these food systems that nourish people. So we want to be able to provide food that is not going to just provide calories, but all of these other nutrients that we know are so beneficial and so helpful. And when we're talking about sustainability, and we're talking about it, from an environmental impact, we're also talking about being able to have a food system and food that is going to sustain human life. So what is beef's place on a healthy, sustainable plate? Beef's place on a healthy, sustainable plate has been challenged. It will probably continue to be challenged. But what we need to do, sorry, my PowerPoint wants to just continue to advance on its own. But what is beef's place on a healthy, sustainable plate? It really is how we position beef in research and communications and education. So again, recognizing that there is an opportunity to pair beef with better partners, talking about using beef as a foundation to get more fruits, to get more vegetables, to get more whole grains, recognizing just the importance of the protein that it provides. And so we want to be able to be ahead of these conversations and again, include beef in that conversation of plant-based or plant-forward diets. We do know through research that meat has nourished for over 2.5 million years. This has really allowed then for us an increase in body and brain size without losing any type of agility or mobility. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association hosted a webinar that is listed here, Meat and the Human Diet, tracing our evolutionary history and today's cultural significance, and really showcase just the evolution of consuming meat and how that has changed and evolved as well. So we know that meat has nourished for a very long time, but the health of humans depends on healthy food systems. And people have questions about how beef is raised. They want to know, is this good for my body? Is this good for the animals? Is this good for the planet? And they are paying attention. They're paying attention to sustainability. They're paying attention to how animals are raised. The challenge is, though, where they're getting their information. So oftentimes they're looking at Netflix documentaries, or they're looking to social media influencers who have really no connection to agriculture. I hosted a group of dietetic interns a couple of weeks ago from 3 different dietetic internship programs based in Colorado. And I sent out a pre-survey for the dietetic interns, all asking them to really rate their knowledge of beef nutrition, beef sustainability, production practices. And there was a large number of them who shared that they were very knowledgeable. I asked them where they got their information. A lot of it was from social media or influencers or Netflix. And when I asked them then if they had ever been on a farm or a ranch, none of them had. So it's a very interesting disconnect that we have people who consider themselves experts who have never visited with a farmer or visited with a rancher, or who even stepped foot on a farm or a ranch. And so we have to, especially in the Beef Council, that is one of our ultimate goals, is to bridge that gap and to answer those questions and to bring people together and expose them to agriculture and how their food is raised. And so, the knowledge gap here, again, as I was stating, is really between farm to table. Individuals are interested in knowing more about agriculture, but they, only 2% will ever work, live, or even visit a farm. So a lot of what I want to do is be able to bring these individuals to producers in New Mexico, bring them to farms, bring them to ranchers, not only learn about animal agriculture, but learn about all of the other items that are grown in New Mexico. And so when we recognize that this is a challenge, this is part of the reason that we work so hard with health professionals and agriculture, is because we've recognized that not only with health professionals and agriculture, but consumers and agriculture, the collaboration is key. So we want to bring people to, on tours. We want to take them to a feed yard. We want to take them to a producer. We want to take them, out and about and have them learn from the actual source, rather than referring to, social media or Netflix documentaries. So again, taking a little bit deeper dive into cattle's impact on the environment. All of this information that I'm sharing from here on out, all was taken directly from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, who focuses, they have an enormous focus on sustainability and really studying cattle's impact on the environment, looking for ways to reduce that impact. And so with that, a couple of sustainability facts that I just wanted to share with you is that we have fewer cattle and less emissions. So US beef has one of the lowest carbon footprints in the world, 10 to 15 times lower than some nations. And greenhouse gas emissions from cattle only account for 2% of US greenhouse gas emissions. The source for this can be found below. And I think oftentimes we hear kind of convoluted facts in regards to agriculture and beef and methane production. And so this is an excellent resource to really showcase that, again, there are many other sources that provide a much larger contribution to greenhouse gas emissions than animal agriculture. And there are things that we need every day, right? Like we need electricity. Oftentimes we need a vehicle, especially when we live in incredibly rural areas to get where we need to go. Landfill. This is something that I also will address a little bit later, is just the amount of food that is wasted and the impact that that has on the environment. So trade-offs matter. And this is one thing that, again, sustainability really is bigger than carbon footprints. So if everybody went vegan in America, what impact would it have? There may be, a 2.6% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, but it also would cause us to have insufficient nutrients to feed the population. We would have an increased use of synthetic fertilizer and an increased amount of soil erosion. So there are trade-offs in everything that we do. There's nothing that any of us do that doesn't have some sort of an impact, which is sometimes hard to fathom. And I think when we talk about sustainability, it's such an incredibly complex topic, and we want to do all that we can to make it better. We want to leave this world a better place for our children than we had it. I think the thing is that, again, there's just, everything has an impact. And so how can we help to reduce the impact that we have and be really good stewards of our natural resources and of our land, and tell our story and just recognize the complexity of the issue as well. So we also like to just showcase with people and share with them just the important job that ruminant animals have and the unique role that they play. Oftentimes people don't understand the rumen of a cow and how it works, and just really the amazing superpower that they have of being able to consume something that is inedible to us as humans, upcycle it into a high quality protein and all of the other products that cattle provide. So it's so much more than the meat, from pharmaceuticals to leather, to just all of the byproducts are so very important. So we like to be able to showcase and tell that story as well. This is just also something that we use with our audiences to be able to showcase, what is classified as cropland or pasture land, urban, all of these different land use types, and really, just also share with them that oftentimes where cattle are grazing and we have cattle, it's not an area that we would be able to, use for production agriculture. So oftentimes it's too rocky or there's not water that's available. So essentially the cattle aren't taking anything away from what humans would consume otherwise, but instead they are really complementing and really being able to provide a habitat, not only, in some of these pasture lands and range lands, where they're not only being able to provide a habitat for the cattle that are grazing there, but then also for wildlife and how they live, together, simultaneously. So they're not necessarily in, again, competition with one another, but different land is used for different purposes. But overall, when we're talking about wildlife and cattle, that they're able to live together symbiotically, and just how wonderful that is. And just recognize that, again, the majority of the land where cattle are grazed is not, great for further development, or it's not great for any type of other production. And that by being able to graze, it helps to reduce the risk of forest fires, which we tend to have so often in the West. It also helps to, reduce the risk of invasive species. So there's just so much misinformation. And so again, we like to be able to showcase the facts in regards to this. Upgrading the nutritional quality of food options. Again, we talked a little bit about the difference between our grain finished and our grass finished animals. People sometimes are thinking, oh, what the cattle, are eating, we could be eating. And that, of course, we know is not at all the case. Oftentimes animals are consuming things that we would never eat, and are really also helping to prevent these items from going into landfills. So for example, my in-laws in the San Luis Valley, there's a lot of produce that's grown there. So they grow a lot of carrots, they grow potatoes. So when they harvest the carrots, and there are carrots that don't make the final cut to be sent to California to be made into baby carrots, that would normally go into a landfill. We have worked out an agreement with Brimway Farms to be able to, for just the transportation costs of us getting the carrots and bringing them, to our operation, we are able to put the carrots in our pasture and extend the amount of time that we have the cattle on grass, recognizing that this is not going to be an item that you or I would ever eat, but they're able to utilize it again and convert it into this high quality protein. And so again, cattle reduce landfill. And when I talk to audiences, and I like to challenge everybody when I'm doing so, is to recognize that, again, sustainability is overwhelming. It's incredibly complex. There are numerous trade-offs, but something that you can do in your own home to make a huge difference is to work on food waste. And cattle reduce the landfill, and it's important for us as consumers to also try to reduce food waste, because that is one of one of the biggest challenges. So wasted food is the most thrown away item and is responsible for approximately 22% of municipal solid waste landfills in the United States, according to the EPA. So what we know is that that is something that we have control over and something that we really can make an impact on. And so I like to visit with people about, cooking once and eating twice, or how to be able, if you have leftovers, how to either, if you have food left over, how to utilize that right away, or how to freeze that, making sure that you date it, and how, to thaw it appropriately to reduce any type of, foodborne illness. So there's a lot of opportunity to work with individuals on the reduction of food waste that can really help make an entire wonderful impact in regards to reducing the amount of landfill waste. And so with that, in closing, I really just want you to be able to take from this presentation what the value that beef brings. So the upcycling component, which is just incredibly unique for animals to be able to, again, take things that are inedible to humans, or maybe even to other animals, and upcycle that and produce high quality protein. Talking about protein, just the benefits of that, recognizing again, in 3 ounces of beef, you're getting 173 calories and 25 grams of protein. The nutrients are unmatched. So again, few foods really nourish or sustain like beef, and the enjoyment. So I think, when we're looking at the research and the reason that people consume beef, the majority of them consume it because they like the way that it tastes and it brings them enjoyment. And oftentimes they're going to celebrate with it. And so these are all things that we want to continue to share and highlight, as well as address the myths and the misperceptions. So this is the end of my presentation, but I would be happy to answer any questions or review any of the other information that I shared. I'm also happy to send any of these slides or any of the supporting documents that you would like as well.
Thank you, Kate. So we'll go ahead and open up this time for questions. I know some people have logged on late, but if you have any questions that you may have written down or may have thought of, please go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can go ahead and insert your questions in the chat box. So have you kind of touched base like on the beef checkoff, like who pays into the beef checkoff?
Yes, and yes. So yeah, and thank you. And I had a slide and I thought about that kind of in the last minute. So yes, so the beef checkoff. So we are funded by the checkoff, which is a fee that an assessment, we like to say, that producers pay each time an animal is sold. And so in New Mexico, they have the federal checkoff where $1 is collected, and then they have the optional state checkoff where another $1 is collected. And so those are the funds that we use for all of these activities, as far as working with, fellow medical professionals, working with the universities, all of the education that we do, all of the promotion, but we're not able to do any type of lobbying or policy making. And so we like to be able to explain to consumers and to producers how the checkoff works, and then just what we are able to do and what we aren't able to do, but also showcase for individuals just all that we do with the dollar or the $2 that they contribute, and just the importance of that. And so we, are constantly working for producers to tell their story, to increase beef demand, but we are there working on behalf of the producer to make sure that people are comfortable and confident in consuming beef and keeping it in a healthy eating pattern.
Okay. So is it like $1 per head, or?
So in New Mexico, there's a federal checkoff and then you have a state checkoff, but the state checkoff is optional. But per the federal checkoff, $1 is collected by your brand inspector each time an animal is sold in the state of New Mexico. And then the producer has the option to contribute another $1 to go to checkoff activities as well.
Okay. So it doesn't matter regardless of age. So it's like...
Yep, not regardless of age. It's just anytime an animal is sold.
Okay. All right. Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I should have. I'll make a note to make sure to include that. I have that in my presentation for healthcare professionals. But I also know that it's always a good reminder for producers, because I know before I started working for the Beef Council, that it was one of those things that I knew that there was a beef checkoff, but I didn't necessarily understand just all of the complexities or really, how it worked. So I like to be able to always share that just kind of as a reminder for, producers and interested parties.
Okay, thank you. If you would like to go ahead and insert like a link where the producers can find some of these publications, especially like the recipes that you shared.
Absolutely. I would be happy to. I'll put it right here.
Yeah, just insert that in the chat box, and producers, these that are the audiences that are on here, they can go ahead and access that. Okay, so everyone, if you open your chat box that is underneath, so if you open your chat box, you'll see a website that Kate has provided, and another website, Beef It's What's for Dinner. A lot of great information on there, a lot of recipes that you can share with your family. So if you would just copy and paste that in your Google URL, and it'll take you straight there. But other than that, does anybody have any questions?
Hi, this is Marge.
Hi, Marge.
Can you hear me? Hi, yeah. Kate.
Hi.
And hi, staff. I'm so sorry that I just jumped on a few minutes ago. I had a meeting, but I really appreciate your presentation to the community, Kate.
Oh,
And I
you're so
know
welcome.
we need a lot of education. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you. And I know we're going to hear from other consultants under the New Mexico Beef Council. So
Yes.
the audience, please join us next time. And I'll make sure I get on too. I just had a meeting that lasts up to 6 o'clock in Arizona, and it's 5. I think it's 7 at your time. Yeah, anyhow, it's really very confusing here. But I just want to say thank you. For doing a good presentation. I just caught your last part of the presentation, and we really need to thank all our producers, those that are selling their cattle. And this is what our consultants are doing under New Mexico Beef Council. And thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Yes, I am honored to be able to share information, and I'm happy to offer any additional resources or be a resource for anybody at any time. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Marge, for that comment there that you shared. So if there are any questions, I'll go ahead and open that up. I did release a poll, so if you guys could be spare 1 minute of your time, I would really appreciate it. You guys fill that out for us. And what you guys think about today's webinar. Loretta, she mentioned excellent presentation, Kate. So thank you, Loretta.
Thank you, Loretta.
Okay, so I guess there will no be other questions, but you guys have been given some links from Kate to go ahead and look on that website, and there's a lot of information that New Mexico Beef Council has provided. So go ahead and copy and paste that URL link to your Google or whichever you guys use, prefer, or Safari, and so forth. But I just want to say thank you, Kate, for providing this presentation for us. For those of you that have just hopped on late, this is recorded, as you know. I know some of you are, I see some of you that are familiar. So this is recorded and it will be posted next week. And okay, I will review the link and send a rating. Thank you, Loretta. But thank you again, Kate. Really appreciate taking time out of your busy schedule to provide us a presentation. Please, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you again for having me. And yes, and oh, let me give you my email as well. So if there are any questions for anybody, or if they think of something later on, I'll just put it here in the chat as well.
Sure, no problem. All right, well, that will conclude our presentation tonight. Kate will provide her email. If you guys have any questions that you guys want to follow up with her, feel free. She's going to provide that in the chat box. But thank you, everyone. So we'll go ahead and move on to our announcements. So we have our next week topic, which is common insects in New Mexico webinar. This is particularly for those that are farmers and crop growers, those of you that have grown corn, melons, and all sorts of crops. This is a presentation for you guys. So this will be presented by Dr. Joni King. She's the NMSU Extension Entomology Specialist. So she's going to be providing a lot of information on what type of insects that are pretty common around certain crops. And she's going to be covering a lot of that information, what's beneficial, what type of insects are beneficial. So this is going to be taking place on April 4th from starting 5:30 p.m. through 6:30 p.m. I'll share the link and information on our Facebook page, and we have a website as well. If you guys want to check that out, we have a lot of other upcoming events other than this one that I shared. But other than that, you have all the information on our main platform. Next month, we have our first in-person livestock first aid training. So this will be offered on April 27th, and this is going to start at 9 a.m. through 4 p.m. It's going to be located in Crown Point at the Dene College campus. So those of you that had missed last year's livestock first aid training, we provided 2 of them, one in Crown Point and one in Shiprock. This one's going to be offered in Crown Point, and participants will receive a livestock first aid kit bag for attending the full day training. So you're going to learn how to use livestock first aid kit to practice general care to treat infections and injuries on livestock from cattle to horses and sheep. So if you can take out your phones and scan that QR code here on the flyer, it'll take you to the registration page and you just register there. Then you show up for the training. So face masks are required to enter the building. So we're going to have some presentation and PowerPoint slides to share with you all. So if you guys come with face masks, that would be great. If you happen to forget a face mask, the campus does offer a lot of face masks. No COVID card required or anything like that, but face masks are required. And here's our Facebook page. So it's pretty simple. If you just type in your URL, nsa.nmsu.edu, this is the main platform that you'll see that pop up on your screen. And here are the tabs that you can look from meeting the team, our previous project here, our conservation planning program, our upcoming events will look like this. Webinars and workshops, newsletters, USDA programs, and their local directory. And here we have the conservation planning program. So the NSA project partnered with Dene College Land Grant Office. So we are collaborating to provide a conservation planning programming. So this concludes conservation plan assistance. So those of you that are interested in trying to develop your conservation plan, if you're in Eastern and Northern Navajo agencies. So if you need some assistance with that, we have a request form that will be located on our website. If you just access that form, you can fill it out, print it out, scan it, and send it back to us here on this email that we provided right here. And if you want to do electronically, that's fine too. You can do that. It works both ways. So if you're in need of assistance in wanting to develop. So Yat everyone, my name is Mikhail Lantana. I am the field specialist for the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. In short, we call it the NSA project. We are funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Native Farmers and Ranchers. And we are also part of the New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension Service. And we also partner with a lot of our project partners, mainly the ones that we collaborate with is Dene College Land Grant Office, and COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. So going straight into our goals of the NSA project is to mainly to help producers improve their operations, profitability, and sustainability through our educational programs and technical assistance in McKinley and San Juan and Cibola counties. So kind of expanding on the educational programs aspect, we provide like weekly presentations like such we're doing now, alternating topics each week from farming to livestock, then back to farming, etc. So we also host in-person workshops with our project partners from soil surveying, herd health, and conservation planning that some of you may have been aware of that we have provided last year. We also provide a USDA resource fair, gathering local field reps to share local programs that there is to offer, as this will help increase our Navajo farmers, ranchers' knowledge to access available programs. And through our gardening programs, increase the local production and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy foods by Navajo families and individuals.